Song The Atom off Red Letter Year. I think it's about time, everybody, that we get into the Michael Schratt interview. It's been fantastic talking to you on this live special edition of the Unified Field. I'm really excited that you're here, and it means a lot to me. It's a really special format this time around. So, let's just remember all that stuff we talked about, research, look into it. There's a lot of truth going on out there. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. I'm going to close out by saying, remember the campaign to send Justin to Arizona International UFO Congress to come back with some great information and interviews for you. Send your pledges to unifiedfieldradio@gmail.com. Am I soliciting? Kind of, but not really, because they're gifts and donations to help CKDU provide good content. How else are we going to do this? If I don't reach the goal, of course, the pledges will be nullified, but it's fun to try nonetheless. If you don't try, how are you going to get there, right? www.myspace or youtube.com/unifiedfieldradio.com. Check us out there. The Blogspot, Twitter, do a search for Unified Field Rad on Twitter. Blogspot, unifiedfieldradio.blogspot.com. And also Eastlink 851. So check us out. Go check out the back catalog of the archives. There's all kinds of cool stuff there and great interviews. That being said, keep your eyes in the sky, and you may just be surprised. It may expand you into the infinite or shrink you down to size. I'm your host, Mr. Justin Brown. We're going to wrap this up with an hour and a half of Michael Schratt talking about incredible stories of United States, America, Black Ops projects, billions of dollars being funneled in there, and an experience of a guy named Dr. Dan Burisch at S4 with an extraterrestrial named J-Rod, the implications of planet Earth, why he's here, where he's from, stargates and time travel. It's all here on the Unified Field. Today on the program, we have an esteemed guest. We only have the high echelon guests on this program. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Today, Michael Schratt is here, and he's been studying top-secret military planes and has developed first-hand contacts with people who have worked on black projects. He has also studied hundreds of UFO cases, reports from the Center of UFO Studies, or CUFOS, files, and others. Schratt has lectured around the world regarding mysterious and secret aircraft. He is currently a private pilot and aerospace draftsman. He's a military aerospace historian and a staff member of the wonderful and fantastic Open Minds magazine. Lecturer, writer, everybody knows who you are, Michael Schratt. Thanks for being on the Unified Field.
Thank you, Justin.
It's a real privilege for you to be here. I don't know if you know this, well, you probably do. I'm having Alejandro Rojas on next weekend.
That's correct. Yes, I'm aware of that.
I'm a huge fan of you guys, and I want to say right off the get-go that Open Minds magazine is the real apex of the ufological world, and you guys do a really fantastic job over there.
Thank you very much. A lot of work goes into those articles.
I would imagine so, yeah. And not only the content is fantastic, but the presentation of the information in the magazine itself is top tier, and there's no parallel to it. Am I right in saying this, or what?
Well, we're making efforts to improve the form, fit, and function of the magazine, and it's evolving as we go along. I think the quality of the product is definitely getting better as we go along. So.
Oh, absolutely. And every single issue that comes out, I can use as a reference point. In fact, I use you guys on a regular basis for information and news here, and on a segment I call the Exopolitical Pulse. Now, without I'm not getting paid for this, so I'm not going to promote Open Minds anymore here, Michael. We'll get right to the interview. Excuse me. So I guess, first of all, the first thing I want to ask you, because I have a whole lot of questions about J-Rod, S4, and Dan Burisch and the questionable material therein. But before I get into that, I just watched a little bit of you on Project Camelot today with a video that Carrie took of you guys out in the parking lot. A little bit of background noise, but the information and content there is fantastic. Not the first time I've seen you. I've been looking at your work and research for years now. As a matter of fact, I've got August, September Open Minds here with your contribution to that last episode of Unacknowledged Aviation, which is fantastic. Is the new magazine out yet?
It came out here. It hasn't hit the newsstands yet, but it did come out here in the company.
I got to get a subscription. I don't know. I got to get one. Anyway, what I want to get into here is, first of all, a little bit about your background, Michael Schratt, and do you mind if I call you Mike?
Oh, that's fine, yes.
Okay, or Michael. I want to get into to how you got into looking into the UFO field, but more importantly, after that, the information and reconnaissance that you've dug up about black projects, black budgets, and some of that technology that is out there right now behind a military closed doors that could solve a lot of the energy problems that we face today. So, Michael, let's just get a little bit about your background here, first of all.
Sure, Justin, no problem, and thanks again for having me on. I've always had an interest in aviation from the very beginning, very early ages. My dad would take me to an old derelict air museum north of Chicago, and this air museum was overgrown with weeds, and there would be dilapidated, left-for-dead, stranded-type aircraft, World War II warbirds. They had a Catalina, a PBY out there, and the skins of the aircraft were all oxidized, and there was a crack in the windshield, and weeds were growing up through the tail. And it just had this haunting, it drew me to it. It's just a very strange effect that it had. And there were all these warbirds parked out on this big field, and it just had a really interesting effect. And that was the genesis of my interest in aviation. And being 3 hours south of Oshkosh, Wisconsin, where they have the annual air show there, my dad took me to the air show. I'd been going there for, this is the first year I've ever missed that show. I've been going there for 27 years straight.
Wow.
And followed everything that Burt Rutan did and was always just fascinated with aircraft. But then I just began researching the things that you wouldn't see at your local air show, the secret aircraft that were alleged for decades, and the paper trail that you could follow to perhaps pin some of these down and have a historical background and paperwork to back it up. And so that's kind of how I started all this.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Did you say that your family had a military background?
No, my family doesn't have a military background.
Okay, just a keen interest. That's interesting. So now, with that in mind, you, I guess from there you just started doing research on your own on military aviation and aerospace programs.
That's correct. I've just been fascinated on what we believe is out there, but we can't 100% prove it. There's a whole lot of smoke out there. And, without getting an actual confirmation from the Air Force, it is up to us. And the way I look at this whole research plane out there, the way I feel it, and this is just my personal opinion, if there are aircraft out there that do not represent a threat to the national security of the United States, that were paid for by the American taxpayer, then it's fair game. Point blank, it's fair game. We can use any tool in our arsenal, FOIA requests, bugging the pilots, the engineers, test pilots who worked on the program. We can use every tool in our arsenal to see if we can get those aircraft dislodged. That's just my personal opinion.
That's an A1 perspective. I never really thought about it like that before.
Yeah, so that's kind of the plan of attack that I use on this. And, as long as it doesn't affect national security and we have paid for it, then all bets are off and we can go after the aircraft.
I love it. So let's talk about some of the aircraft that you've uncovered, because it starts off very interesting, a little bit humble, and then we get into some really interesting anti-gravity properties.
Sure. What I'd like to do, Justin, and we'll see if we have time for this, I'd like to highlight 27 aircraft. I'd like to get into the black budget. I'd like to, if we have time, devote about 5 minutes to Ben Rich, because he needs to be discussed.
Gosh, absolutely. I would love to do that.
The names of the pilots who have worked on these programs, and just very briefly a rundown list. I'd like to discuss the Boeing Phantom Works Bird of Prey, the A-12 Avenger II, the General Dynamics Sneaky Pete Model 100, Senior Peg, Silent Night, that's a brand new aircraft, Tacit Blue, the Honda Stealth Bomber, the Northrop B-2 Stealth Bomber, the Hudson Valley Boomerang, the Manta Ray, the Task Vantage, the RAF Boscombe Down stealth aircraft crash that has never been talked about in the American press, MacDill Air Force Base Jet Disc Program 1967, the LTA craft, the TR-3B, Southern Illinois Flying Triangle, East German Base Forward Flying Triangle Crash Retrieval, Chris Gibson Aurora sighting, Brilliant Buzzard, Boeing Black Star, Copper Coast, Copper Canyon TAV, that's Trans-Atmospheric Vehicle, the F-19, the Pulsar, the Superstall, the ARV, the YF-24, and the YF-113G. Now,
Michael, just before we go any further, I've seen pictures of these craft that you're talking about, and some of them are absolutely phenomenal. Is there a home base on the internet that people can go to right now to see pictures of some of these craft?
Well, you can go to openminds.tv, yep. And some of these are on there, so some of the aircraft that we'll be discussing there are on there, but I do not have a central location where I've put all of this on. I suppose it's time to maybe begin that project, but in a sense, too, this is a very, very small group of people. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's a small group of people who follow these aircraft. This generally isn't a topic that most ufologists are open to or even interested in because, you know, they want to follow the extraterrestrial hypothesis, and I'm totally open to that because this has been going on for thousands of years. Mm-hmm. Jacques Vallée just introduced a brand new book called Wonders in the Sky, and he traces the historical legacy of this phenomenon, you know, way before 1879, before the aircraft was invented by the Wright brothers in 1903. So this has been going on for thousands of years, and I personally believe that 95% of what people are reporting as extraterrestrial UFOs are, in point of fact, our own deep black programs. The remaining 5% represent the core of reality of this phenomenon.
That's a perfect segue for what I wanted to get into about that 95% of misidentified craft. But first of all, I just want to say I'm pretty sure Jacques Vallée is on. Is it the newest Open Minds radio broadcast?
It could be. I don't know if we have done. It very well could be.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that.
Yeah, for sure. So the segue that I was going to make was that you say that 95% of these probably are terrestrial based and built here on Earth. So that some of these craft that you talk about, that you're going to be talking about and have spoken about, resemble a lot of the eyewitness accounts of UFOs reported, specifically triangular shaped craft. I don't know. Maybe you could go into a little bit about that.
Totally. Absolutely. Talking about the triangular-shaped craft, we'll just skip right on to the Hudson Valley Boomerang. My latest article in the upcoming magazine has a complete descriptive article on the Hudson Valley Boomerang, and this is between 1982 and 1989. Over 25,000 eyewitnesses reported a gigantic, perhaps up to 900 feet across, chevron boomerang triangular-shaped craft that had multiple lights, maybe 300 lights on the bottom, flashing. Some of the eyewitnesses said that it had this truss beam girder look to it, very man-made look to it, looked like a truss bridge. It was silent. It could hover. In some cases, some people heard a kind of an electrical humming noise associated with it. I do not believe that is extraterrestrial. It had translucent panels on the bottom. Why would you need translucent panels? Well, if you're landing VTOL, you would need to see your landing zone. This aircraft was seen in 3 different states over 10 years. I don't think this is anything alien. I really don't.
So, if you say this bottom panel was transparent, how would that look from a bystander on the ground? How would they know that was transparent?
Yeah, what you would see is a large dark gray or black boomerang, and then if you're looking up, what you'll see is it's almost transparent. It's translucent, so you can look inside this vehicle and see the truss tube construction. Possibly a lighter-than-air vehicle that is using a carbon fiber exoskeleton with a Kevlar exterior for the skin. That's what I'm proposing this is. This is a lighter-than-air vehicle developed perhaps by McDonnell Douglas back in 1975, and that predates the B-2 program. That's perhaps one scenario that may explain the Hudson Valley Boomerang.
So this was a massive craft, am I right?
A massive craft. Some reports indicate that it's up to 900 feet across.
Good Lord.
Which is just incredible, just incredible. Multiple eyewitnesses, reliable sighting, police, doctors,